Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at Remote Patrol HD 1.1 and how we lay out cameras into the viewing area. And I've programmed a lot of various options into this feature to give flexibility to how you want to lay them out. But primarily they're controlled by this one preference: whether or not you want to maintain the aspect ratio during auto layout. Now this other preference while dragging out cameras is not currently used. It is there for future expansion in an upcoming release. So focus on whether or not you want to maintain aspect ratio during auto layout. Now right now it is off. I'm going to turn it on and pick one of my servers. And I can either drag out cameras one at a time, or I can have them all come out at once and lay out automatically. So if I have them all come out at once, I click this button here. They all come out. You'll notice that there's spaces between the windows. This is because it is trying to maintain the aspect ratio of each individual camera, which most of these here are the same, 253 by 190, but you also have the register, which is at a different size. And also some of these other cameras are slightly different, 278. So whatever the native aspect ratio of the camera is maintained as it is put out onto the mat, but you do have spaces in between. So compare that with, if we close all of these and we turn the auto layout off to maintain aspect ratio and do the same function, lay out all the cameras. Now you'll see they are all evenly spaced with no spaces in between the cameras. So that would give you a nice even looking grid. And you can still swipe to scroll and still single tap hold to wiggle to move. So those are the two different basic ways to pull them out all at once. Now once they're laid out, let's follow through with the fact that we are going to maintain aspect ratio as off. It stays in this grid. You have two choices to move these around, to reorder them while they're on the screen. First of all, you should know that they came out in the order that they're listed over here, where all the cameras are. If you wanted to change that order, let's say for example, let's close these. Let's say you wanted the register to be first. So you could find the register camera, move it to the top, and then when you do auto layout, the register will be in the upper left. It'll be in the first position. But let's say you want to move it around after you've done this. Well, while you're in auto layout and you're in a fixed layout 3x3, 2x2, or 4x4, it's as easy as clicking and dragging. But there's two options to doing this. Down here you have, under the grid options, you have a rearrangement method as either slide or swap. Now slide will basically take the camera that you're moving and insert it to the left of the camera you're going to put it over, and then scooch everybody else down so it'll move everything like a tile game. So let me show you sliding. Let's say that I instead wanted my first camera to be this Lorraine dining room. Once I click and drag this up here, it's going to move the register to here, the back room to here, and the cooler to here. That's sliding. So watch. Single tap hold till it jiggles, move it over the other camera, let up, and everything rotates. So you've now effectively reordered it. And that reorder will stay in place even if you change your view to a 2x2 or 4x4. Let's go back to our 3x3 layout. So that's swap. If you change that preference down here, or I'm sorry, that's slide. If you change that preference to swap, instead of everybody sliding over when you rotate around, it will just switch those two. So if I move the Lorraine order line to the dining room, instead of dining room moving to the right, dining room will just switch places with order line. observe, leaving everything else in place. So that's the difference between swapping and sliding, and that's user selectable in the preferences. You can change it at any time. So that's one method to organize all of these. Now, another way to get cameras out onto the screen, other than using the auto layout feature here, is basically just to select and drag the camera that you want out from the list. So you can pick and choose which cameras you want. If you try to drag it a second time, you do get a warning that the register is already in the viewing area. There's no reason to consume bandwidth for both, for the same camera twice rather. So that is just a safety feature. And it also, the check mark indicates it in the scroll so that you can see and they don't have to bother trying to figure out which ones are already laid out and which ones aren't. That way if you have some that are out of the view, you know by looking at this, I've already put these in my view. So let's say we have this arrangement. You have these 3 cameras, and for whatever reason you want to do, just you look at what's going on around the checkout register. So maybe you want a larger view up here, for example. You can make it larger by just clicking on this right hand corner and dragging, just like you would on a computer, and place it where you want. And then you might have 2 smaller views down here. Now while we're doing all of this, we are in freeform layout. It allows us to move things and change sizes any way we want. When you're in a fixed layout, 2x2, 3x3, or 4x4, you cannot change the size of the camera view, only in freeform layout. But now if we turn freeform layout off by just selecting it again, you'll notice the check mark went away. It's now locked in. So what you can do, even though these are dissimilar sizes, is you can swap them out, just like you could as we showed you before. And the same rules apply. You can either have it slide or swap. In this case it probably makes more sense to swap than slide, but you could put slide in there if you wanted. If I did slide and I moved the order line to the register would move down to dining room, and dining room would slide over to order line. But more than likely you're just going to be swapping the big picture for the little picture. And to do that, you can click and hold the one you're moving, drag it, and it will not only change its position but also its size. So now the order line is the bigger picture and the register is the smaller picture. So this gives you a lot of flexibility in laying out different sized registers, cameras, and swapping in and out larger and smaller views depending on what you need to see at the moment. And remember, a couple of taps, 2-finger taps on the camera with 2 fingers, tap tap, will take you into full screen mode automatically and fill the entire screen with one single camera. To get back, you do the same thing. 2 fingers, tap tap, takes it back to its original position and size. We'll get into more detail later on camera options, but 2 fingers and a single tap in the camera view actually brings up your camera options, which will be in a separate video. Single tap to go away. So that's another way to lay out your camera views on the screen in any size or any shape and still be able to rotate them around. And at any time you can switch, of course, back into any of the fixed modes. Now once you get your cameras just the way you like them, and you may have several different ways you want to lay out the cameras at a particular location, depending on if you're interested in the front room or the back room or one area versus another. The ability to save views is built in. So the ability to save views is built into Remote Patrol HD. There's some that are already in here, but I'm going to go ahead and make a new one, and I'm going to call it just Demo 1. So this new view knows and memorizes where your cameras are, what size they are, and where they are in relation to each other. So later, if you're looking at some other location, or you go to a 3x3, or let's say you're looking at a completely different camera, a completely different server, you can just call it back up just by tapping on it. And you can switch between views just as easily. So you can actually create an infinite number of views, all without having to relay it out a second or third time. And it remembers all the parameters that you have set up like that. Now, if you decide to change things, so let's say we added another camera to this that we decided we wanted to see, we'll go back to Security Spy and say that we're also interested in seeing what's happening over here. We'll just drag out another camera. As soon as you drag something out, remember, you go into freeform layout so that you can move it around however you like and change its size as you need to. And now you can lock that in basically by turning off the freeform mode but leaving it laid out like this. You're not going into a fixed 2x2 or 3x3. And now you've got other cameras that you can just rotate and switch between. And rather than creating a whole nother view or worry about deleting and recreating, you can click the edit button in your views, then click a previously saved view, and you have the choice of either renaming it or updating it. If you update it, it's just going to update. It's going to keep the same name, Demo 1, but it's going to know about that new register camera that you threw out there. If you do that, you'll notice the name stayed the same, but the thumbnail changed to reflect the third view. And this is how you can have an infinite number of layouts with an infinite number of views, all within Remote Patrol HD. Other options that affect the layout include the pixel grid and snap to grid. It's, as the name implies, when it's on, it tries to line up the tops and bottoms and sides of the cameras as you lay them out. And you can adjust how much of a tolerance there is by this plus and minus button. So that will affect that, and you can play with those settings however you like to see how you like to lay it out. And then there's this page scroll mode, which as you've noticed as I'm scrolling, I can stop at any point like this, although it's probably better to illustrate if I open up another view. So let me open up the, let's try this one. Let's lay everything out in a 3x3. And now you can see you've got your 9 cameras here, and you could scroll just a little bit to see just those two or those two. You can basically scroll at an infinite point and stop. If, however, you turn on the paging mode, now when you scroll, it's going to snap to a full page. So if you scroll just a little bit, it's going to either snap back, or, as with most scroll views, it'll snap to the next page. There's no in between. You're either on one page or the other. So it's whichever way you like. Both have their pluses and minuses depending on what you're doing. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video and picked up some techniques for using Remote Patrol HD to your to its fullest. And please review the other videos and see the other techniques we have for the other areas of the program. And don't forget to please leave feedback on iTunes. The star rating keeps me working, so I'd appreciate positive feedback. Thank you, and have a good day.